As we've been reporting, it was a blowout quarter for Germany. GDP surging 2.2% from the first quarter, the fastest growth since the country's reunification 2 decades ago. Well, despite the good news, the DAX finished the day in the red, down nearly 0.5%. But for investors looking for growth, is the German trade the right trade for investors? In search of some answers, let's bring in Jim Moffat, portfolio manager of the 5-star rated Scout International Fund, along with Peter Schiff, president at Euro Pacific Capital, also the author of the book, The Little Book of Bull Moves. Gentlemen, thank you very much for joining us. James, how did this all just creep up on us? I mean, only a couple of months ago we were talking about the Eurozone being in a huge big debt crisis, and meantime Germany's whirring away with good growth.
Well, Germany is an export-oriented economy, and the exports are holding up well. The slower growth in Europe and the rest of the world is going to cut back on that a little bit, but they should keep rolling right along in general. I mean, their domestic consumption is flattish. They've cut back their fiscal stimulus somewhat, but they should keep doing okay. Not maybe as strong as they did this quarter, but I think they'll do well through the rest of the year.
So, Peter, basically the trade would be to go for German exporters then?
Well, that's how I've been playing it. I mean, we're mainly buying the companies that export into the emerging markets, into China. I mean, sure, Germany had a pretty strong second quarter. The GDP grew 9% annualized, but places like Singapore, the growth was twice as high, more than 18%. So we're favoring stocks that are, machinery, more complicated equipment, chemicals, industrial supplies to the emerging markets and to Asia. And at least Europe is addressing their fiscal problems. In America, we're still making ours worse. So you're much better off being selective in Europe than being in the United States.
James, which names would you go for? And I'm wondering if it comes to the exporting stocks, is it going to be a slight problem if we see an appreciation of the euro?
Well, an appreciation of the euro would be a little of a drag, but we don't see that as a big risk. Peter mentioned industrials. One of our names that we like is Siemens, the German industrial giant that exports machinery and tech and medical equipment and things all around the world, including to the Far East. We also like Adidas that in the shoe business, and Fresenius that's in the kidney dialysis business, both running labs and the major producer of the dialysis equipment. Unfortunately, diabetes is and kidney problems are a growth business, and they're benefiting from it.
Peter, is your strategy changed at all by the fact that there's likely to be a fiscal drag from Germany also having to cut its budget?
Well, I don't think that's a drag at all. I like the fact that Europe is at least trying to reduce its government's deficit spending, because it's deficit spending that's a drag on the economy. That's a real sedative. The way you stimulate an economy is you get the government out of it. And, I think the euro is going to gain quite a bit of ground against the dollar, but I do believe that the euro will lose ground against some of the Asian markets, which is why I'm focusing on the exporters that are exporting to that region. I do believe that they're going to have some trouble exporting into America because we're going to be too broke to afford anything, pretty much.
Okay, yeah. Asia seems to be where the growth is, along with Germany. James, I want to ask you this. I mean, it's not so necessarily something with regards to an investment strategy, but nonetheless, is it going to be a headache for the ECB? You seem to have a two-speed economy, right, in the Eurozone. On the one hand, you have a lot of countries down south which still do have sovereign debt concerns, and then you've got Germany, which I would imagine the ECB has to be very careful about to stop them from overheating.
Well, we've argued all along that if you look at North versus Southern Europe, they're two different worlds, and and so we're relatively overweighted in Germany and underweighted in the southern countries. One warning on Germany is their banks. They own a lot of the Club Med debt. Portugal, Italy, Greece, Spain, etc. And so there is a vulnerability in their banking system, but it looks like they're coping with it.
Okay, so you're overweight, James, in Germany. Are there any other European countries that you like right now?
We like Switzerland and Sweden. And they're in much the same boat where they actually make things and export them. those are our primary areas
yeah, you
that
should
we
throw.
like.
You
What
should
about
throw
you, Peter?
you should throw in Norway. Yeah, we're pretty much in the same method here. I mean, I've underweighted Europe for years. I mean, not Europe, and within the Eurozone, I've underweighted the countries that share the euro currency. So I like to have money in Scandinavia. I like Norway, but I have money in Sweden as well. I like Switzerland. So I think if you want European exposure, it is good to get some currencies in there that are not the euro.
Is Norway a commodity story for you, Peter?
Well, it is. I mean, there's a lot of commodities up there, a lot of energy, and I am playing a lot of natural resource themed markets, not just in Europe, but also Australia, more local. We have a lot of investments up in Canada, in large part because of the exposure they have to resources. I expect continued upward pressure on commodities and natural resources as governments debase their currencies. But as you see these emerging markets like China really bringing consumers into the middle class, they start using more commodities. And as they start focusing more on using their resources to produce for domestic consumption instead of exports to the United States, when they start producing domestically, they're going to use a lot more raw materials in the process, and prices are going to go a lot higher.
Okay, James and Peter, thank you very much for your thoughts.